Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Thursday, May 1st. April's over, man. We ended up April with a 673 billion leading flow and a net drain of, I think it was like 310 billion. So the total drain for April from the peak to the trough was like 425 billion. Government is running a surplus for the month of April, 310 billion. And I'll say this again, because I've been saying it over the last couple of videos. Once this news gets out, and it will, because the media will pick up on this, that, hey, the government has a surplus of 310 billion. They're going to be saying that, well, Musk is going to take credit for that. Just get ready for it, because I'm telling you, he's going to say, hey, you see, Doge. That's what's the good thing about it. And the Trump's going to say, that's the tariffs. You see what's happening to tariffs. Now, the tariffs, they are contributing to that net drain, but very small right now. It's up about, well, the total amount of the tariffs is like 71 billion for the fiscal year. And that's up about 16, 17 billion over last year. And that just started to accelerate, that year over year differential. So, I mean, that's a tax. That's money coming from the non-government into the government's account. So that is a net transfer from the non-government, that's us, into the, one way or another, that's us. It's either businesses with reduced profits. It's either us paying higher prices to pay for that. But so that is a transfer into the government's account. So all this stuff that you're hearing out there about, hey, the tariffs is so fantastic, the government's making money. Yeah, the government's making money. And it's coming from us. Those are transfers like any tax. That's a transfer from the non-government to the government. So I don't know what all the cheering and applause and this is wonderful and this is great. I saw a guy on Fox Business, actually Charles Payne, who I used to be very good friends with when I was over at Fox. And he was like talking about yesterday's GDP. And, he explained the trade deficit and the drag on GDP. And, I talked about that yesterday too. And I explained it. But then he said, government spending was down. Not really. I mean, just in the category on that GDP. And he's like, finally, we're getting government spending down. Like that's somehow a good thing. Like, if you don't have an offset to that, because the government, the United States government, is the net spender for the world, basically. It's not just the United States. I mean, that deficit spending, I don't use that term. Those net transfers from the government into goes into the global economy. I mean, that literally funds or finances China's export economy. It's always crazy when I hear people say, China is our banker. What do we borrow from China? Borrow dollars? How does China get the dollars? They have to be, China has to sell us stuff to get the dollars. The dollars can only come from one place. They come from government spending. There's only one place. That's why this whole nonsense about borrowing, government borrowing, you can't borrow something that you can create without limit. And again, you can't drain the swimming pool until you put water in it. The dollars have to be put in the system before even one single treasury bond or treasury note gets sold. I've been over this a million times. It's mind-boggling to me how people don't understand this. Like, anybody who plays the game of Monopoly would understand that you can't play the game until the game distributes the money to everybody. That's the first thing. If you have a Monopoly set, take out the instructions. The first thing it says is like everybody gets certain denominations of notes. It has to distribute the money into the game to each player before they could play the games. The same thing. So it's interesting because April was a positive month for I believe for the Nasdaq. I don't know about the other ones, but they were close to being positive. And that was supposed to be like everyone's running away from America, right? But it was positive, and it was positive because of what I explained to you guys going back to my videos that I did about the bilge pump. Remember the bilge pump? That you have to drain it when the boat gets flooded with water. That's this massive reserve increase into the system. Very destabilizing. And April had all this huge tax drain, and that did the work of the bilge pump. And that's why we had a good month, because it reduced those reserve balances. That cleaned up some space on balance sheet, basically the balance sheet of the financial system, where they were able to add new assets, stocks, bonds, loans, things like that. Tomorrow is a Social Security payment. Actually, I think there was a small one today, a supplemental. Tomorrow's the bigger one. And I think that is going to be a negative for the market. We had kind of a little sell-off towards the end of the day. Today, it wasn't like a down day, but it gave back. At least the Dow did, S&P, a good portion of the early gains. And I think we're going to see some follow through on the downside. I'm not forecasting right now in the near term a test of the lows that we saw, early April. But like I've been saying, I want to see how there's still things that have to be determined, still things that have to be figured out. One is the budget. Now, that's not going to happen until July 4th. Originally, it was supposed to be by Memorial Day. That's the end of this month. But because of this huge tax drain, the debt ceiling, date X, like Besant is calling it, that got pushed back. So Congress is like, oh, we have more time now. We don't need to do this right away. So, we'll have to wait, but that's going to be a very important development. I don't know where that ends up coming out. Is that going to be net spending cuts? Is that going to be net spending addition? We're going to have tax cuts and we're going to have spending cuts. I don't know how that bottom line, how that's going to work out. We got to see the numbers. The House fiscal hawks in the GOP, the Freedom Caucus, they want big time cuts, not so much in the Senate. There's reconciliation going on right now. I don't know what they're going to end up doing. We got to see that. Right now, all I can tell you is that leading spending flows are very, very strong. Net flows they're still good. They've come down a little bit, but they're still good. And market sentiment, investor sentiment, psychology is still leaning more towards the bearish side. So I could see a creeping higher in the market, but we're going to have a lot of back and forth play here. The other thing I want to talk about is gold. Gold is coming down. And, it's interesting because when I was bearish on gold, and I'll be honest, that was back when the price was like $26.50 to $27.50. I had that outlook based on a very aggressive net short position by gold producers and banks in the futures market. And then we saw this amazing thing where right up to the top, the spike that I think we came to like 3,500, that was all banks and producers short covering. They got squeezed out, which is a rarity. You usually don't see stuff like that. But they were really negative, really bearish in the 2650 to 2750, 2770 price range. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back down there again, although I have to say that with these flows as strong as they are, that's going to be a supportive fundamental. So got to give it some time, but I think that we will revisit that price level of 26, let's call it 2650 to 2770, and possibly slightly below. So it should be and that's probably a healthy correction for gold. There was some news today, I don't know if it was true or not, reported on the blog Zero Hedge, that China sold like 1 million ounces of gold or something like that. So I think that spooked the market. I have no way to confirm that. I don't know. I'm just going by that story. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's it for today, a short one. Please like and subscribe. If you've done that already, thank you very much. And don't forget, go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial to MMT Trader. See you tomorrow. Bye.